So welcome back to Partnerships Unraveled, the podcast where we dive deep into the mysteries and secrets of partnerships in the channel. Coming to you from Pax8 Beyond and sitting down with Nihil Morjaria from usecure. Did I pronounce your name correctly?
You know what, you were so brave to not double check the surname before and just jump with it. And yeah, you nailed it.
Yes. All right, good. We're not going to do a retake. Amazing. Hey, how are you?
Very well, thank you. Yeah, Beyond's always a big event. There's always a good buzz. And, just come out of the introductory sort of keynote. So, yeah, it's an exciting opportunity. Lots of ideas going around, lots of people that you can meet, lots of conversations to be had. So, yeah, very well.
Amazing. Well, I'm hoping I can keep up the energy. But to start with, could you give us a quick introduction about yourself and your background?
Yeah, of course, yeah. So, I'm Nihil. I'm the Chief Revenue Officer at usecure. So, I've been at the organization for almost 8 years now. I've done basically every sales role there is to do within usecure. I've cold called, I've done managed teams, I've done the go-to-market stuff, I've done retention. My background is in psychology. That was what I studied at university. And so it's quite convenient that I've landed in an organization in cybersecurity that's all about human risk. So my focus is very much on making sure that we have the right people, the right process in place to make sure our partners can grow. That's everything that I do at usecure.
Incredible. Hey, it's great to talk to you. And by the way, I think that psychology background is invaluable in any sales role, because what is sales other than like laying connection, understanding the other person, understanding what you're looking to achieve together, like digging deeper than the surface level. So I think it's interesting, and I'll definitely come back to that. Let's talk a little bit about usecure. You've scaled to 2,200 partners, more than 2,200 partners. I'm curious to know, what was the biggest mindset shift that your team had to make to go truly channel first? And how did that show up in how you structured your CRO role?
Yeah, so for the first 3 or 4 years of usecure, we didn't have a channel. We were purely direct to end customer. And it's a very competitive market in what was then just security awareness. We've now shifted into a more sort of comprehensive, wide-ranging human risk vector. But at that point, really competing on the direct to business model was very tricky. And so from a commercial perspective, the biggest challenge was essentially having our reps buy into the idea that we are going to give away a significant chunk of margin, but what you get back from that is scale. What you get back from that is external support. We were bootstrapped. We were a small team. We had to be very, very efficient with our resources. And so the big challenge for me was making sure that before we go channel focused, I can get buy-in from our reps to understand that this isn't going to, it's a short-term hit to your revenue.
Sure. Yeah.
But long-term, it's going to absolutely extrapolate, because then you're going to have essentially outsourced sales functions where your job is to prime those people to be mini yous. And all of a sudden, you can then scale out to thousands of partners whilst not needing to scale out your team internally. And so doing the groundwork before that change was really important to make sure that the reps are primed and excited by that and see it as an opportunity rather than something that's going to cause friction or complicate their sales process or hit their revenue.
Yeah, no, I think that makes so much sense. And it's the way that I have these discussions with sales leaders all the time is there's a mindset shift required to think about channel sales as anything other than an extension of your sales, right? It's a force multiplier. And I don't see, obviously it's changing right now, this paradigm. People are starting to understand, and partner programs are starting to be developed to support that more effectively. But yeah, the idea of my partner's coming for my commissions, it's no, your partner should be 2xing your commissions, because you're extrapolating your network.
And it's about choosing those right partners where they're not just a transacting partner. They're a partner that actually add that value. And it's such a buzzword, but you have to look for those partners where they have supplementary resources, which mean that you internally as an organization can grow, because you're getting insights from people that have experience in the channel, that have the network, and that can support you so that you're not a bottleneck anymore. You have these external sources that can provide those leads, that can provide that support, and that can help you to learn as an organization, but also as a salesperson.
Yeah, and I think it's about, again, going beyond that surface level. I had a conversation with a friend of mine recently. We were talking about what network means. And he said, look, some people say oh yeah, I've got 1,200 people on LinkedIn. That's my network. No, it's not. Yeah. For me, network is someone that I can call for a beer and for a job. Mm-hmm. And that person can call me for a beer and for a job. And I think with partners, it's the same thing. Understanding what their I would say that sphere of influence actually really is, as opposed to what they're saying it is, and then building on that, and then it becomes a real force multiplier.
And also someone that can challenge you. If it's a true part of your network, a true friend, that if you're going to say an idea that they think is an awful idea, they should tell you. Whereas if it's someone that you don't, it's just a LinkedIn connection. It's all an echo chamber of
Butterflies and
positivity.
rainbows. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, okay, yeah, great idea. And then in the back of their head, I'm like, oh, I'm not going to do that myself.
Yeah.
Whereas you need those people that can sense check and that can challenge your ideas. And that's how you then grow and evolve rather than just happy ears.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's the psychology behind it as well. So next question. You mentioned you have a background in psychology. You bring that to your CRO role in a cybersecurity company. So how much does that shape the way you think about like partner enablement, for example, but also to help getting MSPs to change their sales behavior?
Yeah, and it's that sales function is so important because it's, the average MSP quite often is someone that's very technical. The commercial side of things is something that they understand is important to their business. They know is like the foundation of their business to be able to run, but it's probably the part they're least confident in because they come from a technical background. And so a lot of our go-to-market messaging is about almost getting ahead of those issues and showing our partners that we understand the challenges that they have. They're all different. They all have their own backgrounds, but we have to adapt to the personas of the people that we're speaking with and think our expertise is in the human side of things. Our expertise is on enabling them to go to market and enabling them to be able to have conversations around what can be quite abstract topics, but to be able to make it tangible, to be able to bring in real life scenarios and examples that people can actually relate to. And so a lot of the work that we've done with our go-to-market strategy, with our internal training, is making sure that we can communicate those sort of problems to our customers and to our partners, and that they can almost become a mouthpiece then, and they become trained by us in how to educate their own customers. And the human risk element is a really interesting antidote because so much of technology is systems focused. And particularly now, everyone's talking about AI enablement. Everyone's talking about software that can be that can evolve incredibly quickly. And yes, those things are fundamental. And they'll always be fundamental. But it's almost a nice change of pace to go back to, well, there's still a person in front of that computer.
Yeah.
And how can we empower them to be able to use those systems in a more effective way? And again, that's where the psychology background comes into it. Is it's making people feel heard, making people feel understood, and it's making sure that we have frameworks internally so that we can tap into those kind of things and understand them as an individual person, and then use that to make sure we can grow with them rather than just treating them as a number on a screen and a metric.
Yeah, 100%. And there's something almost ironic about when we talk about implementing AI, there's this narrative of a human in the loop, right? But then when you talk about cybersecurity, indeed, it's all systems and functions and tech and blah, blah. And I'm like, well, but if I just put in my password into like a phishing email, then that no system is stopping me from doing that, bro. Like answering a scam phone call, whatever. So the human element there is almost critically ignored from my perspective, even though that's like the quickest point of failure, even if your tech is like massively well managed. Speaking of, you've talked about human risk intelligence and a new product you launched called UHealth. I'm fascinated by human risk in the AI age, especially how you balance that narrative. But can you tell me a little bit about why this is important to offering UHealth and what innovations you're bringing to the table?
Yeah, so one of the challenges that we've had, and I think everyone that deals with human risk has had, is often the program sits in isolation in its own tenant. Right. And it's to do with, okay, you've done this training course and you got this score, or you didn't click on this fish. Exactly. It's great. Let's pat ourselves on the back and let's move on. The thing is that there are so many real life signals that we don't incorporate into those programs that tell us, actually, are they applying things? If you send them a policy that says you should not use your work email to sign up for unapproved services, are you actually monitoring whether they're actually doing that or not? Do we have a sense check that allows us to verify whether those behaviors are actually being implemented? And so the idea with human risk intelligence is to bring real life signals into the usecure product. And that's where UHealth comes into it. So we'll be able to integrate with Entra ID, and I'll be able to say, oh, Michelle, you've signed up for these 10 services in the last 3 months because you're testing a ton of AI tooling. And whilst that's great that you've got the appetite to do that and the proactivity, none of these are authorized. And our CTO has no visibility on where your data is going, whether those have been approved. And also, it just so happens that you've not set up MFA on any of them, and you've reused the same passwords. Sorry to use an example, but your face tells me that I've figured you out.
Yes. You use AI for that, right? You see a facial expression when people are reading that email.
Yeah, exactly. So the idea is now, if we have that in the same spaces, we can then say, oh, but Michelle's also been sent these training courses on AI usage. And maybe now it means that we need to revamp that training. We need to use that to feed how we then fish him, because we know the services that he's using. And so then it then makes the program so much more tailored to you as an individual person. And UHealth is what gives us that insight. It tells us what you're signing up for, whether you've set up MFA, whether you're reusing passwords, whether you haven't reset your password in months. And the idea is, again, it's bringing real life signals into the product. And then one of the questions that we get so often is, well, if we get insight into this risk, what do we then do with it? And the goal is then to give clear remediation steps to say, that's so powerful for an MSP to say to their customer, we're taking all these risk signals now into the product, and I'm going to do all these things for you to reduce that risk. I'm managing all of that for you. But here's a nice report that tells you what risk factors we've identified and the steps that I've then taken to remediate them.
Right, so you're actually hitting every step in the chain, right? So you're hitting do you also align with the policies? Like, is that something you can automate where it's like, hey, you parse a policy of a company and you can link up those variables to those policies?
So we have policy documentation that we can send in the product, and we also can align that with certain frameworks.
Cool.
So UHealth is the first step in this. That is the integration with Entra, and it tells us where you're signing up for different services, whether you're reusing passwords, whether you have MFA set up. The longer term goal is to then feed that into custom policy creation, so that we know that that DORA is relevant to you as an organization. In the EU, you work in the finance sector. And so we can then feed in policies to then understand whether those frameworks are being met by the policies that you have. So that's a bit more of the longer term plan, but the initial idea with UHealth, what we're launching, is get those insights from Entra, use that real life signals to then feed the human risk intelligence program, and then we have real life behaviors coupled with still the importance of security awareness training, simulated phishing, but it becomes a much more robust understanding about you as an individual person.
What I like so much about that, it's very exciting to me because it removes the kind of rote nature of cybersecurity training and awareness. Is where if you tailor the simulated attacks to people's behaviors, it's going to be more difficult for them to actually intuit them, let's say. And it's like when you're driving, when you get your driver's license, you look at your inside mirror, you look at your outside mirror, and you look over your shoulder. But when I was doing my driver test, I was just kind of doing that automatically. And I was like, oh, I actually have to look at what's going on. And I think that's a bit analogous to what you're saying here is what you're triggering people to actually take control of their cybersecurity awareness. And I think that's a really cool move.
Yeah, it's a really important point as well, because it builds a culture of accountability. It's the end users so often, when we speak to organizations that are trying to deploy human risk, the end users aren't necessarily informed about what the expectations are there as an employee. It's almost a case of, our IT function or our MSP have these things in place, and I'm sort of secondary to security. And instead, if we can have a continual program that empowers them, again, it comes back to the idea of culture, about accountability.
Yeah.
It then makes them a active unit in the security posture rather than just a passive secondary line that then often is where things fall apart. If we can then have them proactively contribute towards security posture, we then have another layer, and then these people in the system speak together. All of a sudden, we're much more robust.
Yeah, that makes so much sense. A fascinating approach. But one thing I do want to end on is, where do you see AI like rocket shipping the human risk management domain in the next couple of years? Does it make the MSP's job easier? Does it change what they need to sell and deliver? Does it work together with them?
It makes things easier if you have the right processes around it. So one of the challenges, if you collate all this information, but you don't have the right processes and frameworks to then be able to understand that data, operationalize it, and act upon it, then you just drown in information. And so what a lot of our better partners are doing is they are looking at what data they can pull, but before they start to then present that to their customers, they already have a workflow that says, if I get this information, here's what needs to happen, here's what needs to happen after that, and here's the impact that it has upon you. And then they can wrap that into this brilliant service, which they can increase their margins off because it's output led, right? It's here's the impact of it. It's not a case of going to them and saying, this is the information we found, what do you want to do with it? I found this information. Exactly. Exactly. I found this information, I've acted upon it, and here's how it's helped you as a business. And all of that has happened in the past. Now, AI is a massive enabler to that, but you have to put the structures around it to make sure that as we're using these tooling, as we're gathering that data, we can then maximize it. And so I think that's the challenge that a lot of our partners are having and will continue to have over the next year, is those teething issues. And I think a lot of people will drown in information and then try and figure out what to do with it. And it's the more proactive partners that will have the structures in place that mean when they get that information, they already know how to then feed it in. And that's where they can then charge exponentially more, because for their clients, it's a very value and outcome driven service they get from their provider.
Yeah.
They're willing to pay for that because it's a massive headache that'll be taken away from them.
Well, and especially if you can then benchmark that, like non-human risk empowered end customers compared to human risk empowered employee. I think that's fascinating. Hey, to end this, do you have any final thoughts, insights, tips, or tricks you'd like to share with myself and the audience here at Pax8 Beyond?
As in just general.
Yeah, just general like meditation life tips or anything related to usecure, to the channel, to your solutions, anything.
Yeah, I think it comes back to the point that you made earlier about the network side of things. I think it's incredibly important that people talk to one another, that people come to these events, that they share what challenges that they're having, and that they're honest about them as well. It's so tempting to come to these things and paint the rosiest picture about your organization. Everything's great, everything's going fine, all the pros, and ultimately everybody has certain challenges that they're working on. And fundamentally, when you just sit down and speak to people, so often there's a lot of crossover in those. And so I think one of the great things about working the channel that we've realized over the last 4 or 5 years in particular is it stops you being an isolated organization, but you have to be it takes a villager to build a village. You have to be part of that community. And so that would be my advice. We've gained a lot from the channel. I hope we give a lot back. And it's important that people keep on communicating, keep on discussing those sort of challenges. And that's what helps people to continually grow.
No, I love that. I mean, keeping in line with the whole surface level thing. It's beyond the surface level. If we have to start having more real conversations, being honest, because then we all grow, right? Like a rising tide lifts all boats. I love it. Hey, thank you so much, man.
Yeah,